So, Jacobin magazine keeps publishing these articles about effective altruism, the effective altruism movement, I guess, more accurately. This one, by Linsey McGoey, just came out a couple days ago, uh, or yeah, on the 19th. So, yeah, a couple days ago. Something to do with elitism, universities, charity being bad, what have you. And I wanted to respond to this because it's topical, and I also think effective altruism is important. It's an important issue, and I think some of the ideas in this article, or at least what I'm going to take from them, are somewhat indicative of what I'm going to call the online left thinks about effective altruism. And for the most part, I think it's bad. I'm not a fan of a lot of the popular discourse on this. So I wanted to talk a little bit about effective altruism. So if you want to, I'm not going to I have my screen recording here, so I could scroll through for parts of this. I think there was something I had highlighted that I'll come to later, but I've got like a slideshow with bullet points I'm going to use. McGoey is apparently a professor of sociology at the University of Sussex. So professional to some degree, but I don't think this is a very good article, and I will go on to explain why. I may at some point also talk about this one by Matthew Snow, but probably not really in this video. But anyways, this came out a couple days ago. People have been talking about it a little bit. It's partially spurred by the Nick Bostrom stuff, the racist email that came out not long ago. So that's why people are talking about this. So I don't know. Let's talk about it. All right. So this will sort of be my thesis. Charity is obviously a good thing. Giving money to poor people, buying mosquito nets so that they don't get malaria is, yeah, that's good. You should do that if you have the money to do it. Seems semi uncontroversial, but here we are. Jacobin, stop writing these articles. Okay. So again, go read McGoey's article for yourself. It doesn't take long and it's an easy read. So read it. If you want, maybe like pause the video, go read it to make sure I like accurately represent things here. I'm sure I did, but it's sort of hard to hit the goalposts with this one because it doesn't actually really contain any arguments. It's sort of just a lot of weird posturing. But I'm going to try to drag arguments out of it to some extent and then talk about them. So part of the charge, reading just like kind of what you'd call maybe the abstract, not really since like it's a magazine, but you know what I mean. Sort of the introduction is like, oh, effective altruism leads to like a defense of inequality, says something to that effect, and that it's like racist defenses of inequality. It's a strange thing about the article as a general point. Like the last third of it is, as I say down here, is just talking about Nick Bostrom's email because Nick Bostrom's connected to EA and long-termism. And it's like, oh, he wrote this, and then she just spends a chunk of this article talking about why like gene-based racism is pseudoscientific, which it's like, yeah, we know. What does that have to do with effective altruism? So I'll talk about that a little bit, but there's parts of this article that just I'm not sure why they're there. So insofar, so yeah, because I bring that up because the intro of the article says something about like effective altruism, like elitist universities leading to racist intellectual defenses of inequality. And it's like I don't know that anybody defends inequality by racist. Like I don't know what that's denoting. Like is it denoting this one email from 1996? Okay, I don't see how you can then say that about effective altruism, but whatever. And then here, this is a general thing leftists like to say, and it comes up in this article as in Snow's that effective altruism presents billionaires as the solution to poverty rather than the cause of it. So they're saying like, oh, it's good these people have a lot of money because they can donate. And it's like, oh, there we go. That's where the conversation stops. And of course, that's not where the conversation stops for any like egalitarian leftist, effective altruist. But this is what some of the online left thinks, that just like everyone who's an effective altruist is fine with worshiping billionaires, which that's not true. So I mean, I guess it's worth. I'm going to talk about this a little bit more, but it's worth mentioning this here. Like, it's not clear that effective altruism does do this. That is to say, present billionaires as the solution to global poverty. Lots of effective altruists are leftists, such myself. I certainly don't think that billionaires are the solution to global poverty. I don't think billionaires should exist as a class. I agree on that. But in the here and now, yeah, but it's also this also misses the point that effective altruism is not just about billionaires. It's like people in affluent countries in general should just donate money to charity. So it's not the thought is not that billionaires are the solution to global poverty, but that they can help alleviate some real world suffering until we figure out how to like dismantle the capitalist system or whatever. But more on that later. McGoey also says this thing here that like proponents of effective altruism champion the belief that measurable effect in terms of lives saved is the only rational way to make decisions about philanthropic expenditures. I mean, this is in context, which he's talking about how like effective altruism necessarily goes along with like utilitarianism, which isn't true. I mean, you could be a utilitarian and not an effective altruist. I don't know if you could do that consistently, but you could. But you also don't have to be a utilitarian to be an effective altruist. So it's like a weird point. Like, yes, in historical context, Singer is in this tradition of like Bentham or whatever, but it's not really worth pointing out, unless you're going to like say that uh, EA depends on a utilitarianism, then go on to critique utilitarianism. But that's not what McGoey does. She more so just like gives this um, historical argument that like, oh, it's rooted in this sort of like Anglophone, like elitist philosophy, and therefore it's bad now. I'm not sure. As with much going on in this article, I'm not sure what the point's supposed to be. But there it is. If you want to read it, go ahead. And then, gosh, let's see. I've already said some stuff. There's not really anything to say about some of this because it's just like it doesn't make any sense. Gosh, I've horribly misspelled epistemology down here. I mean, let's look at the article so I'm like not misrepresenting some of this. I mean, again, go read it. Oh yeah, then she starts talking about like Will McCaskill's book and like he has apparently a chapter of it like defending sweatshops, and then it's like he's strategically ignorant, and that's hardwired into the Anglophone branch of philosophy out of which effective altruism emerged. This is what I was talking about with the Anglophone philosophy came out of utilitarianism, and it's kind of like built in. And then something to do with something Nietzsche, Marx, Bentham bad, and then just a bunch of stuff about unrelated IQ testing. Cool. Yeah. So this is yeah, like look, some of this is like probably fine. Yeah, okay, so the earn to give stuff, I sort of agree that like just telling people to go work in Wall Street and make a bunch of money is like probably not conducive to living good human lives because there are other considerations beyond making enough money to give to charity, right? Like you should do something that's valuable, giving back in other ways. So yeah, that's fine. Like I agree. And this whole point about like she even says in here that the earn to give thing is problematic because some guy in 2013 said it's plausible that saving a life in a rich country is more important than saving a life in a poor country. But McGoey even says that like, not everyone in effective altruism agrees with that. And then something about like, yeah, but the ones that do are the ones that get jobs. It's like, again, what? Okay. Um, but yeah, I mean, look, for what it's worth, like the earn to give stuff, I can take or leave with effective altruism. It's really not like it's that nothing really stands or falls with that. Like, sure, whatever. Um, I was going to say something about this though. So there's a reconstruction. If you read the article and a lot of the general leftist commentary on effective altruism, when you read these kinds of articles, I think, like for example, if you follow like Emil Torres on Twitter, a lot of their posts are just like about Will McCaskill and not actually about any arguments or anything. Um, Nobody really challenges the basic assumptions like the drowning child argument or like, yeah, thousands of people being saved by a donation to malaria nets is a good thing. Like, I'm not going to go over it in this article. It's very Googleable, but if you want to look up like the grassroots real world effect that effective altruism's had in terms of, sorry, excuse me, lives saved, I mean, everybody kind of ignores that thousands, if not more, people's lives have been saved or improved by this movement. They instead focus on a bunch of auxiliary crap. So, I mean, the reconstruction of this general argument you'll see online, on Twitter, and in this McGoey's article specifically, is well, X person, whether it's McCaskill or Bostrom or the other person just cited with the poor rich thing, said or did something bad, or they committed to a position that's controversial or has bad implications. And then the idea is supposed to be that, like, there you go. Like, McCaskill defended sweatshops. Effective altruism's bad. What? I don't know. Um, and I suppose I'm really trying to figure out what the argument here is supposed to be. Like, the best I can do is that there's some implicit idea that there's like some sort of vice epistemology going on within the effective altruism movement, such that if you commit to this and like thereby ignore the real problems of capitalism, it's going to lead to you like defending inequality or sweatshops or being racist or not liking egalitarianism anymore or something. Um, which it's like I don't know how you would defend that claim, like that vice epistemic claim that like, oh, if you're an effective altruist, you're also going to end up being like a racist or something. Um, so I'm not sure like what the point's supposed to be. Like, look, if the point's supposed to be like that people like Will McCaskill and people that really like him are weird nerds, yeah, okay, right. But the I guess part of this is like what is being denoted by like effective altruism or the effective altruism movement? I mean, is it like like the thousands, what, 17,000, maybe just 7,000? I think it's 17,000 people that like committed to give like 1% of their income, like in affluent countries. Like, what are those people doing that's wrong? Like, are they not spending that money to like for Bernie Sanders campaign or something? Would you be happy if they did that instead of giving money to poor people? So I usually this a lot of this boils down to like weird personal critiques of the people that are like figureheading the movement, which like yeah, they're problematic in some ways. They're weird nerds, as I said, but like it doesn't really have anything to do with the good the movement's doing and the good everyday people can do. And like again, that real world effect of giving people malaria nets is a good thing. Um, I think I said all the points I wanted to say about this, but I got some more general things to say. Sorry, this has been very loose and conversational by nature. I didn't really want this to be too structured. I think I've succeeded at that. Come on, go to my next slide. There we go. So here's some general things I want to say about leftism and effective altruism, and this article is a good like jumping off point to do that. And that's more so, I guess, the interesting stuff because the articles doesn't say anything really worth responding to directly. Um, so as I said here, a lot of these discourse around effective altruism in the online left, especially, attack on certain figures. Like I said, Torres does this. This article does this. Rarely do they like attack. Now, Matt Snow's article, which I'm not really going to talk about, but is a little bit better. It does at least try to engage with some like the Singer style arguments. Not very well, but at least tries. So yeah, here's the thing that McGoey is getting at a little bit, and you see all the time, and Snow's article really does this. There's this old tired leftist point that everybody keeps making. That's, well, charitable giving or the effective altruism movement. They distract from the root problems, which are capitalists, billionaires, the way the economy is structured, this kind of thing. And so instead of, and I guess then the implicit conclusion there is supposed to be, well, you should not give money to charity or be effective altruist. You should instead focus on addressing the root problems of capitalism, which it's worth asking what that looks like for most people. Like, how am I supposed to do that? Like, it's very tangible to me. Be like, okay, extra money I have, instead of buying like a new shirt, let me just send it to buy malaria nets. Like, that's a tangible thing you can do. And so, what is the leftist point supposed to be like? No, you shouldn't do that. You should, instead of buying your shirt, donate money to Bernie Sanders or something, or like I don't know, like put it towards some sort of like union effort. Which it's like one thing that just seems like the wrong way to do the utility calculus, right? Like, sure, people that work at Starbucks should have a union, but for the most part, the people that work at Starbucks are much better off than people that need malaria nets. So if I have to pick between who I'm going to give my money to, not really much of a question. Um, the point being that like, well, charity, effective altruism, the way Singer set this all up, it's very tangible what it is you can do to help people. Addressing the root problem, addressing the problem of billionaires. How are we supposed to do that as everyday people? So I think this kind of leftist strategy well, it's dumb, but this kind of critic, they owe us two things. One thing, it's like, okay, they owe us, what do I say here? An alternative and an incompatibility claim. What do I mean by that? Well, they owe us an alternative, so like an actual tangible, like instead of just saying something general and silly, like, oh, you should, instead of giving money to buy malaria nets, you should work on ending capitalism. That's not informative. That's you're 14, and you're like an online Marxist. Like, that's not an adult claim about like what like an adult expectation of like how I'm supposed to affect change in the world. Like, okay, so tell me what it is actually I'm supposed to be doing instead of giving my money to effective altruism and or giving my money to charity. And also, then the incompatibility claim, explain to me why that's incompatible with giving money to charity. Like if all these people were saying was that, oh, effective altruism is good, but like also don't forget we have to like work on electing more leftist senators and stuff. It's like, yeah, of course. Like, I'm going to give some of my extra money to help buy malaria nets when I can, and I'm going to vote for Bernie Sanders. Yeah, I can do both. But these articles don't like say that. They make the stronger claim that like effective altruism or like charitable giving is distracting from the real problem. Is it? Like, why can't I worry about both at the same time? Seems very manageable to donate money to global charities and then also to focus on politics in my own country. And I put this down here at the bottom, but I'll just talk about it now. Like another reason this is silly is that like I mean poverty is a global issue. Like developing countries are the ones that like third world developing countries are the ones that, you know, need things like malaria nets and simple vaccines and such. Um so like am I supposed to be like working on fixing the global political economy? Like it seems like any political focus I can have, like where I can affect real world change. Like if I go campaigning, I go knock on doors, whatever, that's going to be like local, like for my state at the best, or maybe my country if like I'm voting for a president or something. But me focusing on like leftist politics in the United States, like that's not going to change things for people who are poor in Africa. Like, I mean, there are in some senses ways it changes that. Don't read that too literally, but you know what I mean, right? Like ending capitalism, like are we supposed to be able to completely uproot the global economic structure? How are we supposed to like what resources could I funnel my money into to that end to fix capitalism globally? How am I supposed to do anything that's going to have a tangible effect towards that? Um, Again, all of the things that I could do realistically seem completely compatible with charity, like advocating for a union at my job or in other people's jobs. Like that's completely compatible with me then still working my job, making a little bit of money and giving it to people that need it. What's the incompatibility with these things? It's always just it's never argued for. It's just implicit in these articles that like the effective altruism movement's bad. And they're very like loose between like if they're talking about like effective altruism as like a movement in terms of like just what's going on being spearheaded by these weird like tech bros that are in the movement now. Um, or like just the philosophical claims because like the philosophical claim about like give your extra money seems pretty untouchable at least by all the things they've said. If all they're doing is critiquing some of the figureheads, that's fine. Yeah, like the tech people that think they can get away with like weird nerds, like I agree that those people are uh not doing the most good they could, or they think they're maybe like off the hook and they're really not. Like that's probably right, but like so what? Like they're still affecting a lot of real world change for the better, and we should too. So it's not clear like is no one supposed to be an effective altruist? Are we supposed to just not buy Will McCaskill's books but then still do like our own giving? Like in none of these discourse is it clear what people are actually wanting us to do as an alternative or what they're even arguing for. Um, but yeah, there's also this point about like political limitations. Like I have pretty strict limitations on how much political change I can affect, and I don't have that same kind of limitation with like global charity. Like I can give to charities that are somewhat at least efficacious in alleviating like real world suffering in the immediate sense. Which I mean, yeah, the end capitalism, it's not a feasible or useful political goal. Um, this moral risk point, I think, is worth pointing out too, that like supposing there were an incompatibility and I could only which there's no reason to think that, but supposing they give me this incompatibility claim and someone's convinced by it, then here you go. Uh, Supposing that it is incompatible and I have to choose whether to funnel my resources, like I have an extra $20 this week, like should I send it to the like the anti-capitalist rebels? I don't know. Or like donate it to Impact Matters, like which one? Like if I send it to the anti-capitalists, like it's gonna go towards working to end capitalism, whatever that means in effect. Or I go buy like a few marionettes. So supposing those were incompatible, um, it seems like you still could very easily say that like giving to charity is the right thing to do. It's because with donating to like ending capitalism, that's such a complicated and like tied up political issue that it's like what you're really giving money to is like getting a chance at affecting change or like trying. Whereas with the charity thing, you were definitely going to save a life. So if you donate like a certain amount of money and so on and so forth. Um, so it seems like even in that case where it's like, okay, I have to pick one. I've got to either give to charity or I've got to end capital, like work towards ending capitalism. Well, you should still give to charity because in that case, you know you're going to be affecting change. And in the other case, you know you're just kind of like giving yourself slash future people a shot. Um, so there's sort of like a moral risk. Like you're sort of paying for a chance in one case, paying for a life saved in another. So it's not crazy to think that even were these things to be incompatible, you should still go with charity. And then the drowning child, yet again, like just think about the drowning child case. Singers like, oh, child's drowning, you got to go grab it. If you do, you'll be late to your lunch and you'll get your shoes wet, but you should still do it because like the life's way more important, right? Um, a lot of the leftist critiques are like people running up to you as you're going to save the drowning child, and they're like, no, 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 it's fine. Like let this child drown. Like a mile down the road, there's a guy throwing kids into the river, and that's why they keep floating down here. We got to go get that guy, and then like that will really stop the root of the problem. And it's like, well, I can do that, sure, but first I'm gonna save this kid. Um, and it's not even clear that that's analogous like that strongly because I don't know that some of the claims they're making are right here. But that's like the idea is like, oh, you're not addressing the root problem of why kids are ending up in the lake or in the pond or whatever. It's like, well, not right now. I'm not because I have to get this kid out of the pond, and I'm not gonna not do that to like go look around for the problem. Because in the case I just gave, like it's very tangible what the problem is and how we could solve it. That's not at all the case in what the leftist critique is saying. They're saying like the problem is capitalism or billionaires. You really think we're going to get rid of those things in what, the next 5, 10, 15 years, 20 years? Really? No. Like it's not a feasible or mature goal or way to talk about this. Um, it's like saying, yeah, the real problem, the people, you're not addressing the root problem of why kids keep ending up in ponds. And I'm like, all right, well, after I get this kid out, I'll help you go address that. What do we need to do? And then the hands are thrown up, and it's like, well, you know, it's I don't even know what like an analogous case would be, but I think the point is clear that like there's not a it's not like there's a symmetry here between like equally tangible goals. This is how it sounds sometimes, where it's like, oh, if you just stopped doing effective altruism, you could end capitalism and nobody be poor anymore. And like that's just not true at all. And nobody's dumb enough to actually think that either. I think a lot of this is just posturing and people trying to excuse the fact that they're um, like don't give their money to charity by being like, yeah, but I have like the right beliefs or like I care about this more important thing, like political grandstanding. And that's just as good as giving money to kids in Africa who are dying. It's like, no, it's not. You're just trying to make yourself feel better. And you don't like that these weirdo tech bro nerds are like actually having a real world effect and are helping people, and you're not. Maybe that's part of it, but that's, psychoanalyzing. I'm not here to do that. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I don't have anything else to say about this. I'm tired of talking about this. This is a stupid discourse. So stop writing these articles, Jacobin / online leftists. They're not interesting. If you're going to keep writing them, make an argument in them so that people like me can at least have something to respond to instead of just sort of waffling about for 30 minutes. Yeah, because there's not an argument in sight in like McGoey's article. It's just it's dumb. Just go read it. You'll see. It's just like McCaskill like sweatshop labor. So like effective altruism's bad. Okay. Thanks. I don't want to talk about this anymore right now, but Matthew Snow's article, he's a graduate student at Pitt and in philosophy, so it's at least somewhat more interesting. There are actually a semblance of an argument here, but in that article. So I can talk about that one if you guys want, but it's if you read it, I think most of what I said here applies. It's pretty clear why it's bad too. So stop writing these, please. Just write like good articles. Like if you guys want to read, if anybody wants to read like an actual philosophical back and forth about effective altruism, just read the chapters on it from Applied Ethics and Introduction by Dustin Crummett, Tyrone Goldschmidt, Rebecca Chan, Liz Jackson. It's a really good applied ethics textbook. Got a couple chapters on effective altruism, for and against, actually philosophically interesting, actual arguments. Just go read that. Ignore the stuff people are saying online, including me. I'm not worth listening to. If you're still here, it's your problem. So I think a lot of this covers what I want to say in general about this leftist shit online with effective altruism, but these articles keep popping up. So if anybody wants to come on and talk about these, anybody disagrees with me or agrees with me, sure, let's do it. But for the time being, yeah, give your money to charity, help people not die, and yeah, also vote for Bernie Sanders. You can do both things, I assure you. All right, peace.